Okay, welcome all. How's everybody doing? So this is a second brief little video on the final exam, LEH 353, frenemies, right? The first video goes over the instructions for the exam. I'm going to make a few brief references to points of emphasis on the instructions, but it is absolutely imperative that you follow the instructions. This is a significant part of your grade, to follow those instructions carefully. Okay, so specifically, we're going to go over in this video the questions to the exam, and I'm going to try to explain them in a way to really give you a comprehensive and clear understanding of exactly what I'm asking you and what type of answer I'm expecting from you. Okay, so where is the exam, right? We scroll down here and we find final exam due Thursday, May 19. I click on it and I have the exam posted right here. This is the Word document. This is the Turnitin. This is rules for writing, which I strongly encourage you to take a brief look at. It's only a page long. And then here are the final exam instructions. And below that, you're going to find this video dealing with the questions themselves. So instead of clicking through the link there, I'm just going to put up the exam right here. Again, it's due Thursday, May 19. Absolutely must be on time. If you turn it in late and have not touched base with me well in advance of the final deadline, it will be marked late and points will be taken off. Again, there are two questions. They have parts. Each has parts. You must answer both questions, one dealing with the symposium and the other dealing with Orwell's 1984. Minimum page and a half for each answer. If you're writing less than that, you can't possibly answer these questions robustly. If you're going to write more than that, that's okay, but you must stay focused and stay on point with the questions that are being asked. Simply making it longer does not make it necessarily better. What makes for a strong answer is that you've answered completely and thoroughly and as directly as you possibly can to the specific questions that are being asked. It's not enough just to make true statements or interesting interpretations about the text. You have to be responding to specifically what I'm talking about. Issues of writing quality and substance are addressed in the previous video, but I must cite again, it is absolutely imperative. What you're doing when you're answering a question is basically presenting your hypothesis or thesis of what you think is true. Then what you need to do is support that claim with evidence, and the evidence comes from the text. You must cite the text. And when I mean cite the text, you either paraphrase or quote directly, as we have an example here, and you cite with what's called an internal or parenthetical notation the author's name and page number. That's all I need. Again, absolutely imperative. Plagiarism is prohibited. It's forbidden in terms of the assignment. It's also a serious problem as a matter of academic honesty or dishonesty, as the case may be. If you plagiarize, you will receive an automatic 0, and your name will be forwarded to the department. Full stop. If you plagiarize from another student from a previous semester, although my questions have been changed to some degree from previous semesters, their name will also be forwarded to the department. As you know, Turnitin has the ability to link to any text that is similar, and it's not hard at all for me to make an assessment of whether it's just a coincidence that you have a couple words that are the same, or whether you have a substantially plagiarized portion of the text. And let me be clear, whenever I assess that something's plagiarized, I make sure that it's really not just an incidental situation, because obviously that's serious business. Okay, on the note of plagiarism, you are not permitted to use any outside sources whatsoever, right? Your understanding should come from the materials I've provided you in the class, whether it's the primary reading source or whether it's the study materials, PowerPoints, and videos that I've provided you. That provides your foundation for the course. I am concerned in these questions, they are not research questions. I am concerned with your understanding of what you've read. That understanding can always come from you. It can't come from a secondary source on the internet or what have you. Okay, so enough of that. So first question is on Symposium, second on Orwell's 1984. The question dealing with the Symposium functions on basically the meaning of eros and one additional element that you'll see in Part C. So the basic question here is, what is eros as Plato presents it and understands it in the Symposium? Central theme of the Symposium is eros. Describe what eros is in all its forms and dimensions based on your selection of the commentary of the various participants. Okay, so each participant has a related but distinct understanding of this thing called eros. And over time, this concept develops very clearly. And I want you to give me all the basic dimensions of what this thing is. And let's keep in mind, eros is not just a human passion, right? The first basic understanding, the most literal understanding of what eros is as a blank, which I can't give you. Okay, so next part. The words eros and philia can both be translated as love. And of course, we looked at philia in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. That constitutes his discussion of friendship in books 8 and 9. The Greek word philia is almost always, but not all the time, translated as friendship. But strictly speaking, philia can also be translated as love, just like eros. So I'm asking you to compare and contrast their similarities and differences of these two concepts. Keep in mind that the ethics has a glossary, and you might want to consult that glossary. Also keep in mind that the Symposium has an introduction that goes into some explanation of eros in general, okay? Even prior to the speeches of the Symposium. Okay. C. Essentially, let me just sum up what you're going to do here. I want you to paraphrase and explain one speech, either the speech of Phaedrus or the speech of Pausanias, dealing with the relationship between eros and happiness. Both of them claim, I'm just going to sum up instead of reading what's here. Both of them claim that eros is essential in order to achieve happiness. Now, the first thing we should note is that this claim is virtually identical. It is identical to Aristotle's claim in the Ethics that friendship, that form of love, is instrumental to human happiness. Now, let's be clear. There are many commonalities between what Aristotle says and what Phaedrus and Pausanias say. However, our question here is, how do Phaedrus or Pausanias, whichever one you choose, how do they understand the relationship between love on the one hand and happiness on the other? How does love help us achieve happiness? Right? So pick one of those speeches and explain that connection between love and happiness. That's your goal. Okay. One last note. I have provided you a series of videos, one on each speech, just about each speech of the Symposium, right? So if you're going to write on Phaedrus, if you're going to write on Pausanias, watch those videos. You don't have to watch them all, obviously. You can focus in on the one that's going to help you to answer this question. Okay, so here we go. 1984, Part A. This political regime in 1984 is often described as totalitarian. What does that word mean, and how does the world of 1984 illustrate or be an example of a totalitarian regime? This is something that's not explicit. This word is obviously not actually in the text, but I have provided definitions of this term and discussion of this term in the PowerPoints and the video lectures. Next, again, something that comes predominantly from the PowerPoint slides and the video lecture. Describe what a panopticon is and what panopticonism is. Now, the first thing is panopticon, panopticonism. Two things, same root word, panopticon, but slightly different concepts. A panopticon is one thing, and panopticonism is something related, very related, but something slightly different. Then, how are these concepts manifest in this world of 1984 and used to control the citizenry? C. We've seen in the symposium that one of the basic strategies of tyranny and totalitarianism is to divide and conquer the people in their relationships to each other and also to themselves. So I'm asking you here to explain how this strategy works and how it's manifest in examples in 1984. And there's many examples, right? So when I ask you to provide examples, which I am in A through D, there are numerous examples that you could choose from in the text. And all of them would be valid, right? The key is just that they're a legitimate example of each of the principles asked about in each part. Okay, then D. A major form of control in 1984 is through language and ideas, which regulate not only what people say, but how and what they are able to think, right? So this deals with newspeak. And what I'd like you to do is simply explain as a concept what newspeak is and how it functions to control not only what people say or can say, but also what they can think. And as part of this, I'd like you to address this difficult, I think very difficult question of what is this thing doublethink, because it's one of the elements, obviously, of newspeak. And in discussing what newspeak is, you need to draw on the text. Aristotle. Orwell gives two major explanations of newspeak. One in passages that we looked at in class, in book 1, and then in the appendix of the text, where he gives, again, another explanation of what this thing is. So you should be drawing on his explanation, number 1, and then you also need specific examples to illustrate what it is and how it works. Okay, with that, that's a pretty comprehensive explanation. So this coming week, we will take up any questions dealing with the exam. And if you happen to have any questions about what I've said here, please get in touch and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. So thank you very much.